Georgia Tech just choked away their biggest game in the last decade. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Georgia Tech, your daily podcast on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, guys? Welcome into Locked On Georgia Tech, your team every day. I'm one of your hosts, Caleb Johnson. Wasn't smart enough to get into Georgia Tech, but definitely smart enough to talk about the Georgia Tech athletic teams and certainly this football team that we've got the pleasure to discuss. My co-host is Jarvis Davis. He's been covering Atlanta sports for the last 15 years, so he's certainly more than knowledgeable to get into the show of what we're going to talk about today. I want to start off by saying thank you for making Locked On Georgia Tech your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. We're free and available wherever you download your podcast, and wherever you go to download them, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Today on the show, we're going to get into, did injuries affect the outcome of this game? Also, when was the game actually over officially? But first, Jarvis, I got to say it. Did Georgia Tech prove the doubters right by how they played in a must-win game against Pitt?
Yes. We talked about on our post game show. Make sure you guys check that out. We there for you all to soak and talk about this thing and lay on the couch and talk about this Yellow Jacket team. It's like it's too many reoccurring things in the city of Atlanta right now on the football field. So we're not gonna get into that. Yes.
Before you get into anything, can I just say we almost had a 28-3 situation that I did not want to have to deal with, and hey, we did. At least we didn't get that.
Yes, exactly. So I think but as far as the narrative with this team and Haynes King not getting the respect that he deserves and being in the Heisman conversation, this team not being as high as ranked as high as we thought they should have been. And pointing out different teams that shouldn't be ahead of this team. And I think that the way they started this game on Saturday, they basically said, you guys, of course you're right. Of course you were justified. You were justified in your thoughts and feels about this team and how you viewed this team. And it's truly unfortunate because there were moments in this game that they still had opportunities to get back in it because Pat Narduzzi just couldn't help himself. You're going for a fake punt, bro, and you got this team on the ropes. Just punt them and make it hard for them. You made it so easy for them by going for it on that fourth down, and you basically opened the door again and say, hey, man, I know you're standing on the outside looking, trying to get in and get your little video game that's on sale right now or your little Black Friday sale. You just gave them the opportunity to make somebody happy. And, but in the end, they ended up pulling it out. But when you think about how this team was viewed throughout this, specifically with the college football playoff and how Haynes was viewed from the Heisman standpoint and the game that he had, the voters, the four-letter network, all of those guys, they were justified in keeping you out of that conversation based off how they started this game.
Yeah, I think it's frustrating when obviously, we've seen the discourse around the ACC, and it's a weaker conference, it's a this, it's a that, all of those sorts of things. You look at what people have been saying about Georgia Tech. Hey, your strength of schedule is 88th in the country. Like, you're not playing anybody. Now, we know certainly that the way people look at certain teams now is different, whether it's, for worse, your Clemson's, but for better, I think a team like Wake Forest, who you have to take a lot more seriously than you did at the point where Georgia Tech just barely squeaked out a win over them. But to have that 88th rank for your strength of schedule meant that when you do come up short against NC State and you do have a close game against Boston College, when you reach a point and play a game that is your biggest game that you've played since the year 2014, you've got to have guys step up. And certainly you needed your quarterback, Haynes King, to step up and be that guy who Pat McAfee's wearing a shirt on College Game Day that says Haynes for Heisman, because there were a lot of people who believed in him, but then a lot of doubters. You had Mac Rhodes, you had Hunter Yurachek, who was out here saying that Georgia Tech was dominated on both sides of the football. And you're like, well, that's crazy because, they had over 500 yards of offense. What are you talking about?
Sure.
You knew the difficulties that the defense had. And then you show up in this game, Jarvis, and guess what the committee's going to be able to say about this game? They got dominated on both sides of the football. And you can't necessarily debate that, just because I think, the way that Haynes played was oddly scared. It was really bizarre to see the misses that he was making that we haven't seen, because I think a guy like Isaiah Canyon did an insanely great job of stepping up and being a safeguard. I don't necessarily love to make comparisons, especially within the same city or whatever, but like Isaiah Canyon was playing his Drake London role in this game.
That's a fair comparison. You talking about a big body guy?
Yeah,
he light skinned.
I say that.
It's hard not to make that comparison. And he's on, if I remember correctly, he's only a sophomore. So when that's a guy that's a foundational piece, right?
Yes.
That you can count on going forward. But just from talking about the game specifically, he had a matchup advantage. He probably should have gotten the ball a little bit more, and that goes back to what we kind of touched on, right after the game on Saturday night. Buster Faulkner, man, what we doing? A lot of times when I talk about on the defense side of the ball, how I keep it simple, stupid. On the offensive side, my saying is on the opposite side of the football, from a play calling standpoint, it's all about players, not plays. Man, if you got a guy that has a matchup advantage, and most of the time when Isaiah Canyon steps on the field, based off his build, he has an advantage, especially on a college football field, because you don't have too many guys that can match up with a 6'4", 210 wide receiver that knows how to use his body and get open. So yeah, I think that from a play calling standpoint, Buster Faulkner, there were moments where he got cute, but he didn't. A lot of the players didn't help themselves by, even Canyon had a drop, and Haynes King missing Eric Rivers, again. And then you having a situation with Malachi Hosley, who was dealing with the injuries, and that's your best running back. You didn't have him, so obviously you were hampered by that particular situation as well. It just, man, when you look at it, in totality, how Haynes King was just off, and we know that if he's off, everybody else is going to be off, because he's such a big, important piece of this offense. If he's not going, you have no backup plan. Like you have no curveball. All you got is the heater, baby. If the heater not working, it's going to be a long night. And that's exactly what it was, especially in the first two, maybe like the first quarter and a half. He was just like, this offense, they just couldn't figure it out. What they ended up with like 23 yards of total offense in the first quarter.
21
yards. And Pitt had like almost 200, in the first quarter. So yeah, it's like you can't start games like that. And basically, a lot of people are gonna look at this team and say, "Yep, the voters were right," and that what makes me mad. Like, you made the committee right, and they are just so wrong in so many areas. and how they do these rankings, and that's what makes me a little bit more upset.
Yeah, I mean, the committee's been so hypocritical and how they view, some teams can have good losses, and other teams can have bad wins. Like I mean, Georgia Tech has been one of those teams who's been technically punished for like their Wake Forest win. Was like, well, I mean, there was a controversial call, and you
But
had,
Texas A&M get credit for
yes,
coming back against South Carolina because they're in the SEC.
yeah.
But they're
So
a bad football team, though. I don't care if they're in the SEC.
it's
They're bad.
just,
Yeah.
I think that's the thing is like you mentioned the yardage. There was a timeout taken with 12:26 in the second quarter. Pitt had 224 yards and Georgia Tech had 21. I mean, it was just awful. You look at it from the standpoint of at halftime, Pitt had 12 plays of 15 yards or more. For reference, against NC State, 11 in the entire game that NC State had. Against Boston College, 10 in the entire game. And and Pitt had 12 at halftime.
Yeah.
We talked about, on the post-game show of reacting to the way that we knew that this defense wasn't going to be great, but they really held their own in the second half, and they spent way too much time out there in the first half. Like outside of that 56-yard run from Turner, they really held their own in the second half to give this offense enough opportunity to pull things off. You talked about Buster Faulkner getting too cute, and just one thing I kind of wanted to finish with is I thought the screen game was way overused in this one, and the way that we'll get into the show later on about the injuries and Malachi Hosley a big part of that, and so why you kept going to Jamal Haynes. But I thought way too many check downs, screens to Jamal Haynes, even on like a 4th and 3 play call where Haynes King is like 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage before he lets go of the football. And I thought to myself, I don't understand. It felt like the identity of this team, offensively especially, they got away from themselves. And I don't know if it was the sold out game at Bobby Dodd, of the pressure of we got to win this game to make the ACC championship, what it was. But at the end of the day, it's disappointing to see Jarvis. But let's get into when the game was actually over, because there's a couple of different moments in this one, Jarvis, where you were like, I mean, surely they're done after this. And it kind of went longer than we thought. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. Browsing their site is easy to find pieces that actually fit your personal style. There's nothing generic, just quality designs that truly feel personal. If you've ever hosted a family event for the holidays, you know how much difference a few just new touches can make, and Wayfair makes that easy. Don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale up to 70% off. That's WAYFAIR.com. Sale ends December 7th. We want to thank you guys for making Locked On Georgia Tech your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Who wasn't #1 in this is ultimately Georgia Tech, as they fell to the Pitt Panthers 42-28 in a must-win game for the Yellow Jackets to make the ACC championship game. Well, there's a few different things that maybe could shake out the Yellow Jackets' way, and we'll discuss that later on in the week. But Jarvis, there certainly felt like a couple of points in this game where it was like, oh man, I mean, this one's a wrap, right?
Yeah. And for me, going back to the show that we did talking about the seniors and how those guys had to come up big.
Oh,
The
man.
the number one senior was Haynes King. Scratch him out. Yeah. When he came out the way he did, like, oh man, if he's not playing well, yeah, they have no chance. And kind of it was a trickle down effect on the defense side of the football. Guys like Efford, he ended the game with 2 tackles. Wasn't doing anything in coverage. That has been an issue for quite some time.
Yeah.
Like just really just feet just cemented in the ground, not moving at all, and just staring at the quarterback. That's not going to do anything for you. You get your drop, get into your space where you're supposed to be, and then if the quarterback takes off running, then you come downhill and come make a play on the football. And he just did not do that. Clayton Powell-Lee getting lost in coverage. Like, come on, man. What are you doing? You're a senior, dude. This was the game that you were supposed to say. Yeah.
Heinzel as a freshman, man, using his eyes, cooked
Come on.
Clayton Powell-Lee.
Come on, man. You're being manipulated by an 18-year-old, dude. That's not supposed to happen, Jack. At all. I know your name ain't Jack, but I say Jack so I won't cuss. Like these are some of the things that you don't expect your seniors, your guys who've been around, they've been in games, they've played in games, they've had success in games, and then on the biggest stage, all the eyeballs looking at you, everybody waiting for you to prove them right, like we talked about earlier, and you just tinkle it down your little pants. You just tinkled it away. You tinkled up a huge opportunity away, to get into this ACC championship and then give yourselves the opportunity to get into the college football playoff, man. I thought it was just interesting when they cut to they cut to the trophy and they had it kind of sitting right there. I was just like, oh man, why would they do something like that?
Right.
Like, come on, bro.
What
are you doing? Yeah, it's a little slap. It's a little slap. It's a little slappy. It's a little
I'm sure. Hey, I'm sure ESPN's producers said, "Hey, we brought it here. Might
as well show it during the game." You're like, yeah, then Georgia Tech still has opportunity. I was like, man, stop saying that doggone joke. We know these things, but yeah, that was the point where I just kind of, when you have your seniors not performing the way they're supposed to be performing, and I wasn't asking them to be outerworldly. I'm just asking them to do what they're supposed to do. Do your assignment, and they weren't doing that. So what do you expect the sophomore or the junior that's looking up to them, that looks up to them, to do? That's playing, like those are your leaders on the team. If your leaders aren't playing well, Haynes King, they only have so much they can follow, and there's only so much they can do to try to change the narrative or change the momentum or try to flip things and try to get back on track. So yeah, man, that's when I knew this game was over.
Yeah,
when your old heads were out there just free willy.
Yeah, I think for me, because I talked about this on our show at one point last week where I was saying this team cannot play from a big deficit from behind, because we talked about them obviously getting down at NC State and having to try to battle back. We talked about them getting down, starting the fourth quarter down 11 to Boston College, and we thought, man, how does it get worse than that?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're down 21-0 at the end of the first quarter, and that included a failed fourth down play call that, as I mentioned earlier, I just thought was absolutely terrible. You get down 28-0 in the second quarter after Haynes King missed a wide open Chad Alexander. And then Pitt goes down and scores, and you're like, wow, okay, we're done. I was texting you about don't have to make any plans for an ACC championship game because they're not going to be in it.
Yes.
And then yet they still did little move after little move, get it to 28-14 at halftime. And you're like, okay, I thought they had no life, but 2 scores is reasonable. You can make something happen. And then, going down, like getting a stop to start the third quarter, getting the ball back, marching down the field. Like the moment for me that I knew this game was a wrap is you're about to go and make this game 28-21. And in the red zone, this felt like more of Haynes than Buster. Was Haynes, it was like they were calling plays and Haynes was going, I don't know. Let me just run this thing. And it was like, hold on. I get that Haynes has been a big point, being trusted to score in the red zone. But, if there is something that you can catch Pitt off guard with, I think, that would have been an ideal position to do it. Instead, it was a lot of Haynes confusion, running around, nothing, no one getting open, and then him running for it. And then ultimately Haynes King on that 100-yard pick six, he knew before the ball snapped where he was going with the football.
Yeah.
And it was so easy to see that, they made it look like I'm forgetting dude's name now that made the grab. They made it look like he was going to rush Haynes, and then he drops back into cover. Wasn't it Lightfoot? I think it was.
I think it was. Yeah.
Anyways, it was just like that was when it was over for me, is when you were about to make this game a 7-point game and it becomes
Lovelace.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
I'm over here making up names, Jarvis.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay, man. We're not supposed to know their names. We just know that they made the plays that Tech was supposed to make.
But that switch from it was going to be a 7-point game to a 21-point game. I was like, all right, that's a wrap. And then still, I think, it's hard giving this fan base faith of, all right, maybe they can get a stop late in the fourth, 2 minutes to go. And nope. Boosie Turner had one more 56-yard run in him to just make sure, put the nail in the coffin. And like,
Hey, can we just touch on something really quickly before we wrap this segment up? Can you be an original? Why are you telling people to call you that? Because they're only calling you that because you told them to call you Boosie on the broadcast, right?
I assume, Jarvis, it is because it's Jakirian Turner. I assume he's tired of people mispronouncing, or maybe when he was a kid that, like he got given a nickname. I just want to know why Boosie specifically. Because that's like, shouldn't that be an Atlanta related thing? I don't know.
I mean, Boosie is from Louisiana, and that's where I am currently. Yeah, that's where I am currently. So, I don't. Yeah, man. Just tell them how to pronounce your name. That's all the advice I have for you, sir.
I get, Boosie just feels like, I don't know this, but it feels like that's a one person, name.
Yeah.
That's like, is anyone out here naming?
It used to be Lil Boosie. Now people just call him Boosie.
Yeah.
And people just call him Bron. They don't.
Yeah.
LeBron James. You hear LeBron James, but people call him Bron or LeBron.
And no one's naming future. I don't know. I think it would be ill-advised to raise up a son and be like, yeah, I'm gonna call you Bron, unless your name is LeBron James Jr. Like
right, exactly. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. All right, Jarvis. He
ran for 56. He broke a 56-yard touchdown. So I guess at least for this game, hey man, call me Boosie. Yes,
he earned it.
You gotta call him Boosie. I guess. Yeah, he earned it. Yeah.
I feel myself getting more frustrated, and one of the things that was infuriating Jarvis was certainly injuries and how they played a part. How much did they affect the outcome, though? College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. Well, I'm not excited about a loss to Pitt, but as far as the season and the excitement, and the tailgates, the rivalries. Man, you know the tailgates at Bobby Dodd Stadium were absolutely insane on Saturday. There is nothing like college football, but getting tickets to the game to go see college football can be a battle more than the actual game itself. You've got endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. It's infuriating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's super simple. You can see your exact view from your seat before you buy tickets. It's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way you'll buy tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today. All right, Jarvis, coming into this game, I was assuming and was almost right that the injuries that Pitt was dealing with were going to be pretty influential to this game, especially the minute that we found out that kicker Trey Bukowski, who along with Aiden Burr is up for the Butkus Award. Like you knew, or it's not. I keep wanting to say Butkus. I think it's the. Anyways, I'm forgetting the award they're up for. Regardless, though,
I think the Groza Award is the punter. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's like the Ray Guy Award. I'm so bad with those things. But with Bukowski not being available,
Luke Groza Award.
Luke Groza, thank you. All right. Glad to be able to make that correction on the air. With Bukowski not available and them having to go to Sam Carpenter, who was literally like 1 for 2 against Notre Dame and was hurt himself, literally was out there with a broken hand that he had, bandaged up. He felt pretty good about that being an influential part of this game. And then also, as we mentioned, like Desmond Reed not playing in this game, so it meant they were going to have to go to the freshman Boosie Turner. It was like, all right, this should be pretty influential for the Yellow Jackets. And instead, Malachi Hosley clearly was limited in this one with his touches. Gilmore gets carted off the field on senior night, and Akelo Stone leaves the game limping. Like, it was just pretty unfortunate when it came to the injuries for Georgia Tech.
Yeah, so you had a combination of two things, right? You had your seniors who were out there on the field and they weren't playing well. And then you had guys like Gilmore, who was a senior, and Akelo Stone, who's a senior. Akelo Stone is probably your second best interior pass rusher, behind Jordan Vandenberg. So when you have a guy like that banged up and can contribute in that manner, you're hampered a little bit, on what you can do, in those particular moments when you need those older guys, the guys that have been around to make plays for you. So, yeah, it had an effect. And, I want to mention another guy's name who didn't play as well, the freshman Andre Fuller, number 91.
Yeah.
He's a guy, he's one of your nice young pass rushers. He's a freshman. So there's some he can be a little timid from time to time, and that's fine because he's a young guy. You understand that, but not having that extra person out just there to, a body, man, a body that can that's capable. You're not being able to deploy him, that hurts you. And so when you think about it from that aspect, like Tech got wrecked, from an injury standpoint, and it really showed in the second half when you needed a play or you need your defensive tackle to get off that block and knock Boosie Turner on his behind because he's so light in the dumper, but no, he ends up going 56 yards because your linebackers don't know how to run fit. You know what I'm saying? They don't know how to do that. They just kind of just went blank from that. So it was like the injuries, and I'm not giving them an excuse. I'm not giving them an out, but because, like I said, the guys that were out there, they weren't playing either. It just goes to show you how it was just a snowball effect when it came to everyone on this team. It started with the seniors.
Yeah, I mean, because here's the thing, Jarvis. Like, this is what I feel so confident about, and I think what frustrates me out of this game. If this game was close and became something that you needed to rely on kickers, Aiden Burr versus Sam Carpenter, Georgia Tech is
Sure.
winning that all day, every day.
Putting that money
It's not
down,
even
baby.
close. I mean,
Yes.
literally, the kid was given the opportunity, kick from 40. Okay, and I saw it the minute that the penalty happened, the offsides call. I was like, "Yep, I saw it coming. Knew that was going to happen."
Yeah, he
Okay,
definitely was
kick from
offsides. Yeah.
35 now. All right, I mean, well, he'll hit this one. Nope. And I
Nope.
was like, okay,
Ain't that
it's
bad boy.
on,
Yeah.
it's on from that point if you're missing those types of kicks, because like that would have been a real factor in this one, being able to rely on Aiden Burr versus them having Carpenter out there who clearly had no confidence and was playing hurt. Because that was the other thing, is on the 40-yarder, he kind of got like fallen into. And so he was hurting pretty much every extra point he was kicking after that point. But he was kicking extra points and not field goals,
Right.
which was, a big factor. Malachi Hosley not being a factor in this game, I mean,
Huge.
that's a game changer. Just
Yeah,
an absolute
man.
game changer.
Because he is a game changer for you when you hand the ball off to him. Guy was on the season with averaging 70 yards a pop. That's ridiculous. There's no way you shouldn't be giving that man turn around and hand it off to him at least 15 to 20 times a game. Period. And man, I understand in moments Haynes King has to have the rock in his hand. I get that. But any other time, you need to turn around and hand it off zero. And I've been saying that watching this team the entire year.
Yeah.
There was a point in this season where Hosley was the clear and better back. And I don't want to hear Jamal Haynes as a senior as an excuse. I don't want to hear that, because that's crap. That is crap. That I'm sorry.
You can't do that in this day and age of
You
college
can't do
football.
that. You can't do that, period. Period. I understand. I'm not saying bench the man and don't give him the ball at all. I'm saying when I look at this box score at the end of the game, I need to see that Hosley has more carries than him. And guess what? I know what's going to be true every time I look at that box score. Hosley going to have a better yards per carry, regardless of how the offensive line was blocking, because that's just the type of player that he is. So that's the thing that kind of stuck me a little bit too, because it's just like, all right, man, I understand you're a heavy senior team. Like you're heavy. Like you're heavy. There are going to be some guys that you're going to have to replace next year, but when it comes down to this thing, understanding what's going to win you football games, that stuff goes out the window. That senior stuff.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. All right. You're seeing? Yep. I got you. We're going to take care of you. You're good enough to get touches. Yes. But you're not good enough to get more touches than him. That's it.
Yeah. We're man, this is gonna be a tough week, quite honestly, because the pivot from this game to dealing with that one upcoming, it's going to be interesting for sure. That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Georgia Tech. We'll have some more time to dissect more of what we saw from this Pitt game, as well as get into what will it technically take for Georgia Tech to still make the ACC championship game, because technically it's still available, although quite unlikely. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube to Locked On Georgia Tech and anywhere you listen to podcasts for free. Follow us on social media. Thanks for making Locked On Georgia Tech your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and Alex Donna break down the most interesting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. For Locked On Georgia Tech, y'all have a good one.